Hi guys, it's Mark Cruz again from Nikon Canada, here with the new Nikon D5100. Now, I want to explore a part of photography that a lot of people have struggles with, and that's shooting in low light situations. Now, why do people struggle in low light situations? Usually because their pictures end up too blurry, or really blurry in some situations. Now, why does that happen? It's because the camera is using a shutter speed that's far too slow, and the reason it does that is because it needs to get enough light into the sensor to properly expose it, to make it bright enough. So one way that we can counter this is by just using the pop-up flash of the camera. Now, if you're in auto mode, this flash automatically pops up when you're in a low light situation. So if I'm covering the lens emulating a low light situation, I press the shutter release halfway, flash automatically pops up, and it'll light your subject properly. Now, problem with this situation here is that it usually leaves a background too dark, and that's because it syncs the shutter speed to 1/60th of a second, if you really want to know. But how do we get around that? Basically, all we have to do is go to a mode such as, say, Aperture Priority, or Manual, Program Auto, what have you. Whatever mode you choose, you can still access controls for the pop-up flash. So first of all, you got to make sure that pop-up flash is initiated. Then the option here at the back of the camera will be active. Now, if you look at that lightning bolt there, that's essentially your option for the flash. You want to get to that by pressing your I button here at the back of the camera and accessing the flash. Now, what you want to do is you want to go down here to something either slow or rear sync. So what this does is it will slow down your shutter speed when you're using the flash, giving you proper exposure for your foreground as well as your background. So this is ideal when you're taking portraits in low light. In addition to that, we also have a scene dial here at the top of the camera, which will emulate situations where you would commonly use pop-up flash in low light, such as a scene that we call party indoor mode. So this mode right here will pop up the flash if it needs to in the situation, but give you a slow enough shutter speed to give you ambient light in the background. Very pleasing and ideal for indoor party situations. Another one here is something we call candlelight. And for those of you taking photos of your child while he or she is blowing out their candles, you don't necessarily want to put that flash on there because it's going to drown out the effect of the candle and essentially light your entire scene with a flash. What you do with candlelight mode is you leave the flash down, and the camera figures out what it needs to do to make that scene bright enough. What it actually does is it raises your ISO for you so that your shutter speed can be fast enough speed that it needs to in order to take that picture in low light and do it crisp. So what I would recommend, leave it up to the camera. Go to the scene mode that's appropriate for your situation. There are a couple of other scenes for low light. If we explore the scene dial a little bit more here, we'll also find a scene that corresponds to night landscape. Night landscape is cool too because it sets a small aperture for you. As opposed to when you're taking portraits indoor, this one knows that you're taking a landscape scene. It makes the aperture smaller, meaning your depth of field is larger, and it assumes that you're essentially putting your camera on a tripod when you're doing this. So remember that mode when you're taking landscapes at night. Ideally use a tripod or mount it somewhere where the camera is not moving. For those of you that are a little bit more advanced and want to control the ISO on your own, you got to get away from the scene dial and move to something like Aperture Priority or Program Auto, where you have immediate access to that ISO feature. Now, the cool thing about the Nikon D5100 is these ISO settings here have visual picture clues of when you would use them. Now, ideally, you would want to shoot at the lowest ISO possible. D5100 tells you when to use what ISO and in what situation. So if I go to my screen here and I show you the ISO settings, once you start getting higher in the number, it's going to show you pictures here that correspond to when you would want to use it at 800 ISO or 1600 ISO, such as when you're shooting piano recitals or shooting just in general low light situations. For more information on the D5100, visit d5100.ca and be sure to visit our other YouTube videos featuring the Nikon D5100. Thanks for your time and see you soon.